Next up, we have PanElla 3. We have with us Rukaiya Salman, who is the head of school at the Cedar School. We have Nida Athar, who is the CEO of Innoventures Global Private Limited. Zartaj, who is a tech entrepreneur who has been actively working in the edtech space for more than a decade, and has also recently established Pakistan's first robotics institute for kids. And let's start the session, ladies. Assalamu alaikum. Let me just. So we'll just wait for Rukaiya and Nida to come. Assalamu alaikum. How are you all?
Good, good. How are you? Thank you.
Okay, so before we dive straight into the questions, I'd like to just point out that Rukaiya who is the head of Cedar School, is also the head of academics and curriculum at the school, and she has played a leading role in the EdTech programs post-COVID at the school. Nida Athar works very closely with women-led businesses in Pakistan to help them scale using technology. She has recently worked with with around 40 women-led startups, helping them scale using tech. And Zartaj is not only an experienced STEM educationist, a robotics team coach, and international judge for global robotics team, but has also set up Pakistan's first robotics institute for kids. So I would like to start with you, Nida. How can, since you work with startups and you work with the investment side of things as well, if you could tell us about how can investing in STEAM education benefit Pakistan and its economic future? We can't hear you, Nida. Maybe if you could turn your video off, your audio would be more audible. Yeah. So yeah, can you say that now? Okay. Let's move to you, Rukaiya. Post-COVID, all the mainstream schools had to change how they're working, had to shift to online school, and move to the different edtech systems. So, could you tell us more about how the Cedar School coped up post-COVID?
Sure, sure. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? So basically, Bemisal, I'll just give a little bit of background about it. The take-up of educational technology was more of a piecemeal in school and colleges before COVID came in. Because, schools always used to focus So there was a lot of uncertainty and fear around bringing in edtech technology. But then that was all before the coronavirus pandemic, and almost overnight, educational establishments around the world were forced to adopt digital learning and quickly rely on edtech platforms, whether they wanted to or not. And it also showed parents and children alternative ways of learning beyond bricks and mortar classrooms, that learning can take place
No, we can't hear you. Rukaiya, can you try again with your video off? No, can't hear you. Zartaj, meanwhile, I'll move on to you for the next question, and we can come back to Nida and Rukaiya.
Sure.
So, you are a robotics coach. I wish we could, we had learned that back in school. But when it talks about implementing or teaching robotics, convincing mainstream schools, convincing parents that this is something that your children should learn, how difficult was it in implementing it into mainstream education for you, if you could tell from your experience?
Okay. Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to everyone. I hope you are enjoying the ElleTech session since the evening. As to your question, in the school, so I have been associated and I am associated with Haq Academy. I would say it's one of the top tier schools in Karachi. And I think I was lucky to be there and work with a very open-minded school management who was very open to new ideas. And I think that support actually led me to set up a robotics department in a school very easily and start off the robotics program. Um, so I don't completely take the credit, because had it not been for the support of those the people in the management over there, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because that was from where I started my journey of robotics in education. But generally, since I deal with other schools through my organization in training kids on robotics, and we go through schools and we go through parents. As part of the first institute that I set up, we were talking about robotics labs. There were two mainstream programs. One was robotics, and the other was the mental arithmetic. And we used to say, I mean, after a certain time, we realized that if we have to market mental math, we have to really talk about it to parents, and we market or pitch it to them, because every parent would want their kid to excel in math. But if we have to pitch robotics, we pitch it to the kids, and that's when the kids will make, their parents sign up for that program. So that is, sort of something where the kids feel the liberty and freedom and independence to be able to explore. They're not sitting in that, confined classroom where they're made to sit, listen to the teacher. That's the only thing they can do, what the teacher is telling them. And here's something very, very interesting that I realized, which was that the kids who used to struggle in the classroom, where they have to read through books, they would be very, very creative and come up with ideas in a robotics classroom. So yes, it is difficult to convince schools to add this in the curriculum, because again, the schools are pressured with completing the curriculum and with exams and everything. So that makes it very, very difficult, besides other factors. So yeah, I'll just stop at this. So this was challenged with other schools, but not where I started. And I got a very good start at Haq Academy.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your insight into how convincing parents has such a big role to play in implementing programs in schools. Nida, coming to you, you have worked with women-led businesses. You have sort of helped them scale through technology. So what has your been since we're talking about learning and how and growing, there's really never an age gap, a cap on learning, right? So what has your experience been when it comes to working with these women-led businesses, teaching them about technology? If you could, shed some light based on your experience. No, we cannot hear you. Can you turn video off and say something? Yeah. Can you try talking? Cannot. No, we cannot hear you. Okay, so Nida has dropped out. Let's just wait for her to come back. Rukaiya, can you hear us? I think Nida is back. Yes, Nida, can you hear us now? You're
Yes,
muted.
I can. Am I audible?
Yes, please, over to you.
All right, fantastic. Just 1 second, please. So, when you're working with entrepreneurs, the best part about them is that they are a different breed of humans, and they realize that they have to learn, and they have to keep on innovating not only themselves but also the industry.
Nida, we can't really hear you or answer. Zartaj, could you hear Nida? Nida,
No,
can you
I
repeat? Because
couldn't.
your video is better now. You broke
Does
off right
this
at the
work?
beginning. Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, we
better.
can
Okay.
hear you now.
All right. So I'll keep the video off. I think that's as long as that works. So I don't know where I got broken off last,
You can
but
start from
uh,
the beginning. Yeah.
from the beginning. All right. Long story short, when you're working with entrepreneurs, and I'm going to be different
Yes, it's gone again, Nida. We'll try again. Let's come to Rukaiya. Rukaiya, can you hear us? Can you say something? Can you, if you could? Rukaiya, are you there? Yes, she is. Coming to you, if you could pick up about post-COVID, how Cedar School has gone online. We'd love to hear about that.
Sure, sure. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, so basically, I was talking about a
Rukaiya, we've lost you again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So basically, I'll first talk about the learning management system that Cedar implemented. It was known as D2L. It is known as D2L Brightspace, and what it did was that it brought the teachers, the students, and the parents on one unified platform. It's an upgraded version of Google Classroom, and it has a lot more functions. And I feel like an LMS, gives teachers a lot more, like it gives teachers more options so that they can share course materials, take quizzes, conduct classes, and also share academic reports. And another advantage that an LMS has is that parents can easily access educational records that are required, and even students have immediate and efficient access to knowledge, which is very important in this time. So if you look at it overall, this pandemic has given us, a lot of opportunities. There's a big shift, going towards blended, strategy, like I mentioned. And then another thing that Cedar did, which got great reviews from our parent community, was a proper student information system known as GradeLink. Because what it did, it brought our grading, attendance, and school admin all online. And we've been using it for a year to monitor attendance. And like every parent in school has an account in GradeLink. And as soon as your child enters a class, you get a notification. Every quiz mark, test mark that's uploaded, you get notifications. So it has kept our parents and teachers so well informed that it has improved our communication system also. But it isn't like Cedar was pro tech only post pandemic, and they did not invest in edtech, because the board at Cedar, has always heavily invested in educational tech, because they're aware of its far-reaching benefits. Like Cedar College came before Cedar School, and they also had very good edtech platforms. So what we had already done was, before pandemic had come, that we had invested in an app called IXL. Basically, IXL, I would love to talk about IXL because it has really helped our students. It's a US-based app, and it's got 8,000 skills and like 5 billion questions from all the way from pre-K up to 12th grade. And information is always updated. It creates like personalized action plans for every student. So it doesn't feel like you're giving a test, because I've tried that out with my own student, with my own kids, who like one is in grade 6, one is in grade 1, and it's a very safe and low pressure experience for students. So we were already using IXL in our classrooms before COVID, but I felt that during the pandemic it helped a lot. Like, for example, you want to give a child homework on decimals but don't want to make it difficult, so the app automatically marks students work, giving teachers to invest their energy in other things, like making better lesson plans, coming up with more interesting ideas to conduct their classes online. So it was a blessing in disguise when the pandemic hit us. And the last tool that I would like to talk about is Chem. So I'll tell you a little bit about Chem, and we had already started with Chem before pandemic came, and it's actually a short form for Center of Evaluation and Monitoring. And these assessments I found out about for the first time when I attended the Cambridge conference in UK 2019, because it had recently been bought by Cambridge International. And it has like 30 years of research and assessment data. And we didn't know how much it's going to help us, during the pandemic, because what happened when pandemic came in March, we were supposed to take, after that, we had online classes, and we were supposed to take our summative exams, like the final exams, in May. But we knew that the students are not ready, and we also didn't want to pressurize them when people around them were sick and going through COVID. So what we did, we replaced final year assessments in our grade 6, 7, and 8 with Chem. It did not require any preparation. It was an adaptive test. So it wasn't a burden on students and parents and teachers. It it was automatically checked. And Cambridge also helped us when those exams got cancelled. Cambridge International cancelled exams worldwide, on 23rd March. And they said you can use alternative assessment methods to provide students with fair grades. So we were ecstatic when they announced in April that you can use your Chem assessments that your students have given to provide evidence. So not only did we send e-copies of our tests and mocks, we also sent the Chem assessments that students of grade 10 and 11 had appeared for, because it was like evidence. Then in that time, when students of grade 9 wanted to choose subjects, like Chem has this feature that it can also predict, in which subject can you do well. So we use that for grade 9 parents. So basically, our apps, so the investment in EdTech, which was in Chem and IXL that we had done before the pandemic, and then the SIS and LMS in which we invested after the pandemic, really helped us, to boost our online system. And I would like to mention that we have we should give a lot of credit to our teachers, because they had to learn the whole online learning.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been possible if they weren't willing to learn the techniques that the time and investment that IXL needs. Even with the LMS, there's a lot of training that you need to give them. And but they
Plus,
were willing.
also, Rukaiya, like the kind of subjects, like not all subjects can also be taught online. Like, for example, if it's PE, if it's exercise, for example, it's lab experiments when we're talking about STEAM. So it's really kudos to the teachers who managed to go online with every possible thing. So I'd like
Exactly.
to bring this up and talk to ask Zartaj also how you went online with your robotics institute.
So, in terms of what Pakistan Space Science Education Center was doing, since we operate virtually, however, we used to conduct classes at schools.
Oh, okay.
So we used to go in person, and our educators would dress in flight suits and go in person to conduct classes. Again, we're a space science education center, so we wear flight suits to inspire and engage the kids. So what we did was that we immediately made a shift to the online live classes because the students and the children and the parents even, they're used to having their kids attend instructor-led sessions rather than self-paced lessons. Self-paced is gaining popularity now and people are trying to understand that, but still I feel it has a long way to go. So we moved to online means, and since some of the schools were having online classes, um, people were kind of used to it. But hey, how do you conduct an extracurricular class where you need material, where you're doing activities, where something can go wrong, and then who's going to help? And there was this pressure that parents are already pressured to continue the learning at home, guide the children. So that was a big, a bit of something that we had to brainstorm with. But what we did was, in some cases where the material wasn't available, we sent the materials to parents. But then we came up with courses that use daily use material. So the kids would just put it together, led by the instructor, and they would just take pictures and videos and show it to us what they're doing. So we did shift to online means, and that was very much appreciated. One thing about this was about the Life from Space program. The other is the robotics, and robotics became very interesting. So the thing is now virtual robotics, and worldwide competitions, they all became virtual. So what happened was that companies started earlier, there were only a few companies worldwide. But then they started coming up with virtual robotics platforms where, how kids play these 3D and computer games. So we have this virtual robotics platform where the robot is right in front of you and you can program it and control it. So it's just like game. And the kids would love that so much. And there are competitions as well. So we are participating in an international competition with a few teams from Pakistan in March. And that is going to be an international league. Now imagine I'm sitting here in Pakistan and one of my team members is probably in the US, one is in Australia. I have my cousins all over the world and I can form a team. So the possibilities are endless. And if we look at it, that we're from, like Nida is tuning in from Islamabad and I'm from Karachi, Rukaiya is from Karachi. We're all from different places. I know the internet, I hope it keeps working. But all we need is good internet.
Yes,
and the possibilities are endless. I mean, people can get creative. We've seen that. We needed this disruption, I feel, particularly for the EdTech space, because before the pandemic, everybody would say, oh, EdTech company, nope, nope, a big no.
Yeah.
But now all eyes are on EdTech. So
and look at this conference, the very possibility of this conference happening
Right.
with these speakers. I mean, I'm out of Bahrain. I wouldn't have imagined to have, flown to Pakistan, get all these 20 people in one room and conduct this conference.
Right.
Absolutely
That's
right.
true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Moving on to Nida. Nida, can you tell us about the women-led businesses that you were telling us about earlier?
Yes, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So I've lost my train of thought twice. I'll just like to say it from two angles. That first we was talking about why is it so important to have STEM education, and how does it help in the entrepreneurial scene? I think it helps you to be resilient. It helps you to come up with So having said that, that was one part of it. I also believe that any nation that needs to grow economically needs to have a set of individuals, if not an army of it, who can think creatively, who can think out of the box and not in binary terms or in orthodox way. And that is where STEM education is really imperative. It teaches you, it's a whole school of thought. It's not just a science, technology, engineering, and math subjects, but it's a rather integrated way of thinking about how philosophy falls into a certain school of thought when you're trying to, how does ethics come into all of this? When you're generating an idea about, like I was talking earlier as well on this topic, when you're talking about going to Mars, it's not just that you need to know space sciences. You also need to know biology. You need to know, how does the maths of things work. You need to understand how, human life forms survive in that atmosphere. What are the
We lost you, Nida. But continuing with what Nida was saying is what brings me to my next question also, Nida. And I'd like to throw this to you, Rukaiya, if you could tell us, and even you, Zartaj, it applies to all three of you. See, now in mainstream schools, when we're talking about Pakistan in general, science is taught. So with science, physics will be taught as one subject, chemistry as one, math as one. But the student can't really correlate or apply these subjects which are taught in isolation to their lives and bring them together. So I'm trying to ask you, Rukaiya, is that when it comes to mainstream school, especially private school, you're working with one, Rukaiya, you're heading one. So how open are schools to sort of go for a more interdisciplinary approach, where subjects there is correlation and the student can actually understand how it applies to their lives? If you tell from your experience.
Yeah, so I feel like now many schools have moved towards the interdisciplinary approach. It was very common in the IB curriculum, as you might have heard, the International Baccalaureate system. But even now, as a Cambridge school, I feel it's much easier to implement these interdisciplinary projects, because now Cambridge has really changed the way, they approach things, like, the launch of their Global Perspectives program, the way they teach science now. They've come up with a new ICT startup pack. They're launching new subjects like physical education. So what they're doing is, through the launch of these subjects, they're trying to make work more research based, project based, so that students can learn more from real life examples rather than just, through the advantages and disadvantages or the way things were done previously. So I feel like now the Cambridge schools also have a chance to learn from these projects. But yes, the school also has to put in the effort. Not everything will be given to you in the IB curriculum or the Cambridge curriculum. The school themselves have to put in the effort to implement 21st century education and, skills, which are the skills to collaborate, to research, to work together. And I'm sure, this like a good team where where pedagogy is important, where people understand the basics of teaching and learning and the benefits of interdisciplinary learning. There's a lot of research being done as to how to bring it together. Like, for example, maths can be taught in many interesting ways if collaborated with English and physical education. A very small example, that we had a project where we merged maths and physical education by giving the students to make their own calorie chart. What do they eat? How much carbs does it have? How much protein does it have? So this way they actually learn from a real life example. In maths, the project was to measure the whole school and some rooms and come up with new designs. So they learned about perimeter and area, not just through their copies and books, but actually by measuring the classrooms and designing new things. And actually that gave us such good feedback, because we found out how a student wants to make his library look like, wants his canteen to look like, right? And that gave us a chance to improve. So I'm saying that the school also, the team has to put in the effort in research and innovation to come up with these ideas. So, I mean, the curriculum is given to us by these, bodies, but then you have to also, make modifications within your school academic and curriculum team.
Right. And just moving on to the last question. And this is something that I want each of you to answer. Your experience when we're talking about rethinking STEAM education, there can be so much that can be done in terms of improving the healthcare system, inspire new industries. We can, make more, when we're talking about in a Pakistani context, making our society safer. There's so much that can be done. But as educationists, as, innovators, as, people who are helping people set up, set up businesses, bring in investments, how can all of us together, who are the key players, bring this and demonstrate the importance of STEAM education for our children today and long run for our children tomorrow? So we'll start with you, Nida. If you could tell us from, a more of a corporate point of view, bringing in investments for such programs, if you could tell us. Nida. Your video went off. We can't hear you. Nida, are you saying something? Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. So, from a corporate point of view, I'd like to say one thing that, when you're talking about STEAM education and everything, you're preparing the workforce of the future. So the work has to start at the basic level right now. Whatever direction the country is going to take, I believe STEAM education is the one which is going to be the guiding force. Teachers need to train the students to become sort of creators as well as users, as well as what could be, the solution providers actually of all of the innovations that are out there, rather than just users. And we need builders. Basically, we need builders, we need innovators, and all of this is going to boil down to the education system that is being implemented from this point onwards. The disruption that our system needed.
I know Nida's. Nida's. Cannot hear Nida. Zartaj, would you like to take up the answer?
Yeah, so I agree that, everything that Nida is saying, completely agreed on that. STEAM education should be at the heart of the entire education system, I feel. We're living in a skills-based economy, and skills are in demand by the employers as well. We all hear that once someone graduates from the university, they're not hireable or employable. They need 2 to 3 years of experience to be able to work in that setting where, the employer wants them. Why is that so? Why aren't our graduates from university ready for employment? There's something seriously that needs to be considered at the education, the school level education, college level, and even university level. In the school, the students, when they're given projects, they're given, and why do kids love projects? Because they have that liberty to do things on their own with their hands. And everybody likes to do it that way. No matter how many times I tell you programming is done like this and all of that, until you do it your way and you do it yourself, you are not going to experience it and learn it. So learning is gone in our education system. We're just teaching them to exams, generally the way it is happening, apart from a few schools who've gone ahead, done the research. And I feel that one major thing that needs to be done is teachers training. We're talking about students. We can't forget the teacher. The role of the teachers is very, very important in revolutionizing everything. Just like Rukaiya mentioned, that it was the teachers who took on that actively and learned all of that, took all that pressure besides the pressure of finishing the syllabus. They took that on positively and willingly, and then they were able to deliver. I feel that teachers training is an important and integral part. Now, all teachers need to be trained on STEM education, and I know everybody's going to kill me for that. But let me tell you, STEM education is a methodology. Just like Nida said, it's a mindset. Just like entrepreneurship is a mindset. And I think entrepreneurship should also be taught as part of the school curriculum. That should be mandatory. Like the other day, my son was asking me, and he was showing me a video that, mom, see, school doesn't teach us how to pay taxes and all of these things. And I'm like, okay, hold on. School is teaching you all of this, and that is why you're talking to me like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and today my daughter was making a connection between history and solving Rubik's Cube. So my kids play with Rubik's Cube a lot, because she said the way the events in history happen, you have to memorize the sequence and then analyze it and then take reflect on it. The same way in the Rubik's Cube, both my children are playing with Rubik's Cube. You have to memorize a sequence of their certain algorithms or something that they play with. I cannot solve it that fast. And so she was making those connections just because she's thinking. So unfortunately, not a lot of the children in this country think like that. And I feel that if they are given the opportunities, and we have to come up with these opportunities for them, whatever children are around us. That is how I came into it. My children have taught me and given me the reason to stay in the education field. Otherwise, I was doing a corporate job. So I came into education because of my children, and I've stuck around because I feel that professionals like us should come in the education field so that it is disrupted the way it is. So that would be my take on it. And thank you for having me today. Thank you so much.
Rukaiya is yet to answer the question. So if you could give us your 2 cents on, given from your experience.
Yeah, so I think Nida and Zartaj have already covered up the main points, but I would just like to say that what STEAM framework does, in my opinion, that it brings these 5 disciplines together, in an inclusive learning environment, and it gives every student a chance to contribute and participate. And research says that, this kind of a holistic approach encourages you to exercise both the left and the right sides of your brain simultaneously. So even if you're young and you're invested in STEAM education, you may not have decided what path you want to follow, but it teaches you how to, have critical thinking skills across interdisciplinary boundaries. Therefore, we as the school systems need to invest in it if the budget allows it, and even parents need to have a very forward-thinking approach and an encouraging approach towards it. The government needs to invest in it, so it cannot happen like overnight. There needs to be the change has to be pushed by schools, it has to be pushed by parents, and it also has to be pushed by the government, because then only we'll have well-rounded candidates who possess these 21st century skills, because now robots have replaced a lot of repetitive tasks, and the research says that our kids who graduate in 2030 and 2040 will have to change 17 careers in their lifetime. So that means that they will need a lot of different kind of skills, critical thinking skills, creativity skills, which are all embedded in the STEAM education. So therefore, it's very important that if we want our country to, have the kind of economic development and stability that the first world has, then we invest in STEAM education. And that push comes from many different ends. If the private schools can afford it, then they should go for it. If the government can set a budget, then they should, help out.
Yeah.
But then only we'll be able to change, the way we look at things, and we can develop, new products. And that's what's going to be sustainable, even economically, in the near future.
Absolutely. And I think what's excellent is that everybody is realizing it. And like Raj, you said, that this disruption was much needed for people to see it in a completely different. After that, so thank you to each of you for all that you're doing, all the ways that you are contributing to women and girls in STEAM, and thank you for your time today and being able to make for this panel session. And inshallah, we'll be in touch. And thank you for joining. We'll be moving on to our next panel.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Questions, and they've been quite good also. So thank you.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, that internet worked and everybody got a chance to talk as well. So thank you. And I'm going to be moving now to our next session.